Section 27 of Astounding Stories 15, March 1931. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Beth Thomas. Astounding Stories 15, March 1931, by Various. The Meteor Girl, by Jack Williamson. Part C. My own thoughts were racing. Seeing into the future was a rather revolutionary idea to me. My mind is conservative. I have always been sceptical of the more fantastic ideas suggested by science. But Charlie seemed to know what he was talking about. In view of the marvellous things he had done that night, it seemed hardly fair to doubt him now. I decided to accept his astounding statement at face value and to follow the adventure through. He lifted his pencil and consulted the luminous dial of his wristwatch. We saw that last scene some 12 hours and 40 minutes before it happened. To put it in conventional language, the distortion of the time coordinates amounted to that. In the light of the dawn, for we had been all night at the Meteor pit and silver was coming in the east, he looked at me with fierce resolve in his eyes. Hammond, that gives us over 12 hours to get to Virginia. You mean to go? But just 12 hours? That's better than the transcontinental record, to say nothing of the time it would take to find a little rock in the Pacific. We have the Golden Gull. She's as fast as any ship we've ever flown. But we can't take the Gull. Those alterations haven't been made. And that new engine. A Bearcat for power, but it may go dead any second. The Gull can fly, but she isn't safe. Safety be damned. I've got to get to Virginia, and get there in the next 12 hours. The Gull will fly, but... All right. Please help me get off. Help you off? It's a fool thing to do. But if you go, I do. Thanks, Hammond, awfully. He gripped my hand. We've got to make it. With a last glance into the gaping pit from which we had dug the marvellous stone, we turned and ran across to the hangars. As we ran, the sun came above the sea in the east. Its first rays struck us like a fiery lance. The mechanics had not yet appeared. Charlie pushed the doors back, and we ran out the trim little Golden Gull, beautiful with her slender wing and her graceful tapering lines. I seized the starting crank, and Charlie sprang into the cockpit. I cranked until the mechanism was droning dismally, and pulled the lever that engaged it with the engine. I had been in too much haste to get up the proper speed, and the powerful new engine failed to fire. Charlie almost cried with vexation while I was cranking again. This time the motor coughed and fell into a steady, vibrant roar. With the wind from the propeller screaming about me, I disengaged the crank and stood waiting while the motor warmed. Charlie gave it scant time to do so before he motioned me to kick out the blocks. I tumbled into the enclosed cockpit beside him. He gave the ship the gun, and we roared across the field. In 5 minutes we were flying west, at a speed just under 300 miles per hour. Charlie was crouched over the stick, scanning the instrument board and flying the Gull almost at her top speed. Again and again his eyes went to the little clock on the panel. 12 hours and 40 minutes, he said, and an hour gone already. We've got to be there by 5 minutes after 6. We were flying over Louisiana when the oil line clogged. The engine heated dangerously. Reluctantly, Charlie cut off the ignition and fell in a swift spiral to an open field. We've got to fix it, he said. Another hour gone, and we needed every minute. This new engine, it's powerful enough, but we should have had time to overhaul it and make those changes. Charlie landed with his usual skill, and we fell to work in desperate haste. A grizzled farmer, a wad of tobacco in his cheek, and 3 ragged urchins at his heels, stopped to watch us. He had just been to his mailbox and had a morning paper in his hand. Charlie questioned him about the storm. Storm centres near the American coast, he read in a nasal drawl. Greatest storm of year drives shipping out upon west coast. 6 vessels reported lost. SS Valhalla disabled. Sends SOS. 1,000 lives are the estimated toll tonight of the most terrific storm of the year, which is sweeping towards the Pacific coast, driving all shipping before it. Radiograms from the Valhalla at 5 p.m. report she is disabled and in danger. It is doubtful that rescue vessels can reach her through the storm. We got the engine repaired, took off again. Charlie looked at the little clock. 5 minutes to 10. 8 hours, 10 minutes left, and we've got a darn long ways to go. We had to stop at San Antonio, Texas, to replenish gasoline and oil. 10 minutes lost. Charlie complained as we took off. "And that monster waiting in the future to drag Virginia to a hideous death." 2 hours later the plane developed trouble in the ignition system. The motor was new, with several radical changes that we had introduced to increase power and lessen weight. As I had objected to Charlie, we had not done enough experimental work on it to perfect it. We limped into the field at El Paso and spent another priceless half-hour at work. I got some sandwiches at a luncheon counter beside the field and listened a moment to the radio loudspeaker there. "Many thousands are dead," came the crisp metallic voice of the announcer, "as a result of the storm now raging on the Pacific coast, the worst in several years. The storm center is spending its force in the coastal regions today. Millions of dollars in damage are reported in cities from San Francisco to Manzanillo, Mexico. The greatest disaster of the storm is the loss of the passenger liner Valhalla of the Red Star Line. It is believed to have collided with the abandoned hulk of an Italian-owned tramp freighter, the Roma, which was left by its crew yesterday in a sinking condition. Radiograms from the liner ceased 3 hours ago, when she was said to be sinking. The officers doubted that her boats could be launched in such a sea." I waited to hear no more. Charlie checked our route while we were stopped, and we took off. We crossed the Rio Grande and flew across the rocky, brush-scattered hills of Mexico in a direct line for the rock in the sea. "If anything happens so we have to land again, well, it's just too bad," Charlie said grimly. "But we've got to go this way. It's something over 600 miles in a straight line. 15 minutes to 4 now. We have to average nearly 300 miles an hour to get there." He was silent and intent over his maps and instruments as we flew on over the lofty Sierra Madre range and over a long slope down to the Gulf of California. Headwinds beset us as we were over the stretch of blue water, and we flew on into a storm. "We had hardly time to make it without the wind against us," Charlie said. "If it holds us back many miles, well, it just mustn't." Purple lightning flickered ominously in the mass of blue storm clouds that hung above the mountainous peninsula of Lower California. I had a qualm about flying into it in our untested machine, but Charlie leaned tensely forward and sent the Golden Gull on at the limit of her speed. Grey vapour swirled about us, rent with livid streaks of lightning. Thunder crashed and rumbled above the roar of our racing engine. Wild winds screeched in the struts. Rain and hail beat against us. The plane rose and fell. She was swirled about like a falling leaf. The stick struggled in Charlie's hands like a living thing. With lips tightened to a thin line, he fought silently, fiercely, desperately. Suddenly we were sucked down until I had an uneasy feeling at the pit of my stomach. I saw the grim outline of a bare mountain peak dangerously close below us, shrouded in wind-whipped mist. In sudden alarm I shouted, "We'd better get out of this, Charlie. We can't live in it long." In the roar of the storm he did not hear me, and I shouted again. He turned to face me after a glance at the clock. "We've less than an hour, Hammond. We've got to go on." I sank back in my seat. The plane rolled and tossed until I thanked my lucky stars for the safety strap. In nervous anxiety I watched Charlie bring the ship up again and fight his way on through the storm. For an eternity, it seemed, we battled through a chaos of wind-driven mist, bright with purple lightning and shaken with crashing thunder. Charlie struggled with the controls until he was dripping with perspiration. He must have been utterly worn out after 36 hours of exhausting effort. A dozen times I despaired of life. The compass had gone to spinning crazily. We dived through the rain until we could pick up landmarks below. 3 times a great bare peak loomed up suddenly ahead of us, and Charlie averted collision only by zooming suddenly upwards. Then slate-grey water was beneath us, running in white-crested mountains. I knew that we were at last out over the Pacific. "We've passed Point Eugenia," Charlie said. "It can't be far now, but we have only 15 minutes left. 15 minutes to get to her, before the attraction of the Meteor jerks her away, perhaps to a horrible fate." We flew low and fast over the racing waves. Charlie looked over his charts and made a swift calculation. He changed our course a bit, and we flew on at top speed. We scanned the vast, mad expanse of sea below the blue-grey clouds. Here and there were lines of white breakers, but nowhere did we see a rock with a girl upon it. Presently the green outline of an island appeared out of the wild water on our right. "That's Del Tiburon," Charlie said. "We missed the rock." He swung the plane about, and we flew south over the hastening waves. I looked at the little clock. It showed 2 minutes to 6. I turned to Charlie. 7 minutes. he whispered grimly. On and on we flew in a wide circle. The motor roared loud. An endless expanse of racing waves unreeled below us. The little hand crawled around the dial. 1 minute past 6. Only 4 minutes to go. We saw a speck of white foam on the mad grey water. It was miles away, almost on the horizon. We plunged toward it, motor bellowing loud. 5 miles a minute we flew. The white fleck became a black rock smothered in snowy foam. On we swept, and over the rock with bullet-like speed. As we plunged by, I saw Virginia's slender form, tattered, brine-soaked, straggling in the hideous tentacles of the monster octopus. It was the same terrible scene that we had viewed through the amazing phenomenon of distortion of light through space-time 4,000 miles away and 12 hours before. In a few minutes the time would come when Charlie had ended our view of the scene by his attempt to draw the girl through the fourth dimension to our apparatus in Florida. What terrible thing might happen then? Charlie brought the ship about so quickly that we were flung against the sides. Down we came towards the mad waves in a swift glide. In sudden apprehension I dropped my hand on his shoulder. "Man, you can't land in a sea like that. It's suicide." Without a word he shook off my hand and continued our steep glide toward the rock. I drew my breath in apprehension of a crash. I do not blame Charlie for what happened. He is as skillful a pilot as I know. It was a mad freak of the sea that did the thing. The grey waste of mountainous, white-crested waves rose swiftly up to meet us, with the rock with the girl clinging on it just to our right. The Golden Gull struck the crest of a wave, buried herself in foam, and plunged down the long slope to the trough. We rose safely to the crest of the oncoming roller, and I saw the black outline of the rock not a dozen yards away. Charlie had landed with all his skill. It was not his fault that the blustering wind caught the ship as she reached the crest of the wave and flung her sidewise towards the rock. It was no fault of his that the white-capped mountain of racing green water completed what the wind had begun, and hurled the frail plane crashing on the rock. I have a confused memory of the wild plunge at the mercy of the wave, of my despair as I realized we were being wrecked. I must have been knocked unconscious when we struck. The next I remember, I was opening my eyes to find myself on the rock, Charlie's strong arm on my shoulder. I was soaked with icy brine, and my head was aching from a heavy blow. Virginia, shivering and blue, was perched beside us. I could see no sign of the plane. The mighty sea had swept away what was left of it. Clinging to the lee side of the rock, I saw the black tentacles of the giant octopus, waiting for a wave to dash us to its mercy. "All right, Hammond?" Charlie inquired anxiously. "I'm afraid you got a pretty nasty bump on the head. About all I could do to fish you out before the Gull was swept away." He helped me to a better position to withstand the force of the great roller that came plunging down upon us like a moving mountain. Virginia was in his arms, too exhausted to do more than cling to him. "What can we do?" I sputtered, shaking water from my head. "Not a thing. We're in a pretty bad fix, I imagine. In a few seconds we will feel the attraction of the Meteor's field, the force with which I tried to draw Virginia to the crater through the fourth dimension. I don't know what'll happen. We may be jerked out of space altogether, and if that doesn't get us, the tide and the octopus will." His voice was drowned in the roar of the coming wave. A mountain of water deluged us. Half drowned, I clung to the rock against the mad water. Then blinding blue light flashed about me. A sharp crash rang in my ears like splintering glass. I reeled and felt myself falling headlong. I brought up on soft sand. I sat up, dumbfounded, and opened my eyes. I was sitting on the steep sandy side of a conical pit. Charlie and Virginia were sprawled beside me, looking as astonished as I felt. Charlie got to his knees and lifted the limp form of the girl in his arms. Something snapped in my brain. The sand-walled pit was suddenly familiar. I got to my feet and clambered out of it. I saw that we were on our own landing field. Astonishingly, we were back in the Meteor crater. Charlie's vanished apparatus was scattered about us. I saw the grey side of the rough iron meteorite itself, half buried in the sand at the bottom of the pit. What happened?" I demanded of Charlie. "Don't you see? Simple enough. I should have thought of it before. The field of the meteorite brought Virginia, and us, through to this point in space, but it could not bring us back through time. Instead, the apparatus itself was jerked forward through time. That is why it vanished. We got here just 12 hours and 40 minutes after I closed the switch, since we had been looking that far into the future. The mathematical explanation—" "That's enough for me," I said hastily. "We'd better see about a warm dry bed for Virginia and some hot soup or something." Now the rough grey meteorite in a neat glass case rests above the mantel in the library of a beautiful home where I am a frequent guest. I was there one evening a few days ago, when Charlie King fell silent in one of his fits of mathematical speculation. "Einstein again?" I chaffingly inquired. He raised his brown eyes and looked at me. "Hammond, since relativity enabled us to find the Meteor Girl, you ought to be convinced." Virginia, whom her husband calls the Meteor Girl, came laughingly to the rescue. "Yes, Mr. Hammond, what do you think of Einstein now?" End of section 27.